Welcome to our 10th anniversary gala dinner. My name is Adam Bratton. I'm the Executive Director of the Robert H. Jackson Center. And tonight we are celebrating our first 10 years of the Jackson Center while we enjoy the present and look forward to the next decade and beyond. It is my pleasure to recognize a few folks tonight who are very instrumental in bringing tonight's dinner to fruition. Barrett Prettyman is the honorary chairman of tonight's event. Barrett is special to the Jackson Center because of his direct link to Robert H. Jackson. Barrett served as a law clerk to Jackson and knew Jackson both as a friend and professional. Barrett is a board member of the center and a supporter of all we do. I'd also like to point out Ron Hermans, who is the chairman of tonight's celebration. Ron is a true friend of the center, of Greg Peterson, and you'll hear more from Ron later this evening. Thank you to both Barrett and Ron. And we could not, of course, do or have such a wonderful evening without the support of our amazing office staff. Carol Drake, who is our office manager and manages us all. Megan Sorensen is our fundraising and communications guru. And Jennifer Champ, our archivist and web developer. And of course, Teresa Nelson, who is our financial manager. If they could all just stand for one last round of applause. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a longtime friend of my family, as well as the Jackson Center, Tom Becker, the president of the Chautauqua Institution.
Welcome. It's a delight to have you at the Athenaeum and within the boundaries of Chautauqua Institution. We have covered, in an unusual way, the window that Thomas Edison used to escape from when people tried to talk to him at his table. At least that's the lore. It's also true that Mark Russell studied piano when Thomas Edison was running through. He studied the Suzuki method. That was Henry Suzuki from Olean, and you can see just how good that was. I just have a couple of thoughts to share with you. I was reminded recently by a friend about Lewis Thomas's life. And one of the things, Lewis Thomas is the biologist, the essayist, the Renaissance man, who talked about life, the measure of life really being its usefulness. And I've been chewing on that ever since. It's really sort of an interesting challenge to all of us, isn't it? That the bottom line measurement of all of our lives is how useful we have been. You think about Robert Jackson and the various stages of his life and just how, completely, utterly useful he was in every one of those cases. And then here 10 years ago, in a rather whimsical way, people with a dream decided that they would make more useful that life, bring it into contemporary life, bring it a sense of relevance so that all of us might gain from a single individual's achievements, perspective on life, illuminate that in a creative sort of way. I cannot talk about the Jackson Center without referring to my good friend Dan Bratton and how he had intentionally retired from Chautauqua to run the Jackson Center, a job he got conned into by Greg Peterson. And those of you who have been conned by Greg Peterson, never mind. Those of you who have not been conned by Greg Peterson, raise your hand. See, there you go. And one of the lessons of life that Lewis Thomas didn't share, but we all know, is that life is fragile. And we aren't in control of so many things. So in a desperately tragic and ironic sort of way, 6 months after Dan retires, he's dead of pancreatic cancer. And yet, you look at the Jackson Center, and it marches on 10 years hence. And the person about to take the role as chairman of the board is Stan Lundeen, another Chautauquan. He actually is Carl Palladino without the bad eyes or the angry nature. So there was a continuum in our experience of people we know at a deeply intimate sort of way. And the centerpiece of all of that for this evening, for all of us, is Greg, who, my good friend Marty Itzik talks about how most of us go home at the end of the day and put our feet up and watch television or do something. He says Marty goes home and he works on something else, or Greg goes home and he works on something else. His dedication to his passions and his sense of community, his idea about being useful is irrepressible. And he attaches and attracts all kinds of energy and belief around that genuine sense of passion. He's also a baseball enthusiast, which gives him credibility. And he is a wonderful father, a deeply devoted husband, a great citizen of this community. So what goes into 10 years of success of the Jackson Center? I would argue that at the base of it all are people absolutely dedicated to being useful. And all of us are going to celebrate Greg tonight. I recommend that every one of you ask him for his autograph before. He'll end up making a film of this. You'll be on Channel 8 for the rest of your life. It is really my purpose to welcome you to Chautauqua, to a place that embraces the usefulness of life. And we hope that you find in your time here a genuine sense of satisfaction about something that is birthed in our area that has significance far beyond. And I congratulate all of the great people beneath the Jackson Center and those who will carry it forward into the future. And I say to Chris and Ron Hermance, I too have a list. I'd be happy to talk to you about other things you might find beyond this dinner. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to extend from the Jackson Center a special thanks to Tom, Bruce Stanton, and the wonderful staff here at the Athenaeum Hotel for their gracious hospitality and generous help with all the arrangements that made tonight's dinner possible. Tonight's invocation will be given by Father Maurice Fuchs. Father Fuchs is a priest of the Diocese of Syracuse, ordained 55 years ago following 9 years of study at Rochester, New York, and Catholic University in Washington, D.C. Father Fuchs also has a Jackson connection. During World War II, Father Fuchs was a foot soldier in the 1st Division, Big Red 1, became one of the 30,000 battle casualties in the Hurtgen Forest, and was wounded on November 19, 1944, just before the Battle of the Bulge. After 3 months of hospitalization in England, he returned to battle in the Harz Mountains. The division ended the war in Czechoslovakia and pulled back to Ansbach, southwest of Nuremberg. As the war ended, his regiment was assigned to police SS prisoners clearing rubble from the streets of Nuremberg. In the summer of 1945, his commander, assigned him to be the personal bodyguard to Robert H. Jackson as chief prosecutor of the International Military Tribunal, which we all know as the famous Nuremberg trial from 1945 to 1946 of the surviving high-ranking Nazis, including Goering, Hess, von Ribbentrop, Keitel, Jodl, Dönitz, and others. The year-long association engendered in then Sergeant Fuchs a great respect and admiration for Robert Jackson as a gentleman and statesman. Father Fuchs, we are honored to have you here to render the invocation on this, our 10th anniversary. Father Fuchs.
You can be sure I'm glad to be here. High on the facade of the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C., is carved a row of world-famous lawgivers, each facing center toward a figure of Moses holding the Ten Commandments. The commandments are also engraved on the doors of the courtroom itself and above the judges sitting in session. It is clear that our nation's founders intended that God and the Ten Commandments were basic to their plans for drawing together the peoples of the then disparate 13 colonies. We were to stand together as one nation under God, respecting the rule of law. The Saturday Evening Post magazine for many years featured the artist Norman Rockwell, who painted for us the kind of America in which we grew up. Our streets were filled with lives that were thriving with homemade experiences, youthful vibrancy. There was a mixture of virtue and wisdom, as well as humor and some whimsy too. Today,